board report, I'm going to talk a second about the Grand River Greenway, West Michigan Conservation Network, plan update, and the conservation district contract, volunteers, Oakville, and newsletters in 10 minutes. It'll be very efficient.
It's Trustee Castle. He just hasn't shown himself yet.
I can do my assistant principal voice and really talk loud.
Just stand like this, maybe? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Grant, I'll turn and look at the screen. The Grand Rapids Greenway update. I talked to the Kent County Parks Director this week, and I think you're all aware that Kent County Parks got 15 million out of the COVID money for the Grand River Greenway. So that includes trailhead and development, engineering, tunnels and bridge, as well as construction trails through partnering townships like us. And hopefully he's going to send me a map next week, because I'm going to go to the Pathways Committee. And I'd kind of like to hear a little more about what they're thinking. So we'll see. Just to remind you, Cascade's part of the West Michigan Conservation Network. We're a group of 62 partner organizations in 7 counties that either manage, protect, restore, educate about natural lands and water. We're going to host at Burton Park, because we're kind of famous, with our Oak Wilt programs for West Michigan in May. And then in case you didn't know, the state, the statewide Arborists Association had a Oak Wilt training in September this year, and they were out looking at Burton Park. Because again, we've just done it well and people want to see. The parks master plan is complete. The 5-year plan, even though my picture says draft, it's done and it's on the website if anybody wants to look at it. The Parks Committee will be addressing the 2023 goals, I'll pick some for each meetings. For example, and we talked about this a couple of meetings ago, the township engineer, Eric Thorne, will be speaking at February's meeting to talk about updates about the erosion at Peace Park, what we're doing about our parking lot at Burton, and then the drainage problems at Wycliffe that we haven't gotten. I have reached out and connected with the new president of the Thornapple River Watershed Council. We are looking forward to planning a joint event on the Thornapple River with them, a cleanup day. That's one of our goals. And then I want to get them more involved in our strategic plan now that I know who this person is. As mentioned in the goals section of the 5-year parks master plan, we're pursuing the development of a park millage for sometime in 2024. We have a contract, and you'll see it on the agenda for 23 with the Kent Conservation District. They logged 179 crew hours from January through December this year, treating invasive species on all Cascade Township properties. And I have had various neighbors around Burton Park have commented to me about what a positive difference they're seeing with invasives at the park. So we can credit Janine and we can credit Kent Conservation District. So this is an example. You can see the invasive bittersweet on the right, and then on the left, it's been treated and it's out of there. Yahoo. They've worked on invasive bittersweet, poison hemlock, Japanese barberry, garlic mustard, tree of heaven, Japanese knotweed, and multiflora rose. This is the tree of heaven at the Wycliffe property. The really tall tree in the back is probably 30-year-old tree of heaven. That has been treated and it's gone. The little kind of wispy are little tree of heaven seedlings, and nobody is really sure how to get rid of those. So Kent Conservation District has sprayed those, and that's kind of what we're waiting on later in the spring to see if they come back. It's a clonal species, so it's really difficult to treat. So we're just kind of a work in progress, but we're trying.
Does it look, it looks like sumac, right?
It does look a lot like sumac, but it has a really, people say it smells like burnt peanut butter. It has a bad odor to it. So if you're really confused, you can go up close and stick your nose in it and see what you think. And this is Kent Conservation District. This is Betty in the blue, and she's teaching Jim and some of his crew how to do drill and fill on that huge tree of heaven, because you've got to get it into the roots, and if you just cut it down, it doesn't work. So here's us learning. Next, thank you. This is the volunteer chart. So Kent Conservation, myself and Janine are basically volunteers. So we had almost 869 hours of volunteering this year. And I put a little something in your packet so you can see more details. But basically, the wonderful Janine put in 300 hours. Kent Conservation District did some work days with residents as well as organizations, and they contributed 524. I'm trying to read sideways. And then I did 2 garlic mustard work days. So it was, we had a total of 137 volunteers for 868 hours. And we haven't had volunteers like that. Next slide. And then here are some of the organizations. Kent Conservation District sent our way, GE Aviation. I hope we can get some more businesses in Cascade to volunteer. Calvin, a high school. Janine's in there again. We had Boy Scouts. So it really made a difference. Next slide. And if you look at the value of volunteer time, it's estimated to be $29.95 an hour. So if you multiply that together, we saved almost $26,000, and we'd be able to use that in a grant as a match, which I think is really exciting. And those are some of the Eagle Scouts working hard there in October. Oakwood update, we had the trees at Burton Park in the infected zone removed in the latter part of November. And that's a picture of the woodland tree service that you all approved to contract to take those trees down. And then they're taking the mulch, and that's some of the roots. And then I think one more slide. So you can kind of see the stumps of the infected trees. So after we've trenched, we've taken the trees down, and then they put a little herbicide over the trunk just to make sure there isn't any more residual fungus sitting there. So that's kind of why, because people are like, why does the stump look so funny? Well, that's because they put herbicide on. And then Jim and his crew did a great job building the ground, spreading the wood chips, and I think that looks really nice on the trail. And then we just got a report from the Oak Wilt consultant today, and I just want to read it because it makes me very proud. Julie said, to reiterate, the work performed by the Cascade Building and Ground staff, the Parks Committee members, contractors exceeded our expectation, particularly by Woodland Tree Service. Our proposal stated that collateral damage was to be kept at a minimum. And Tom, if you would tell Dawn that we followed through on her request, because that was her.
Okay.
When she was on the Parks Committee saying, we got to keep this at a minimum. As an example of the extraordinary care taken during this project was when one of the arborists rescued a 12-foot evergreen that was in harm's way and transplanted it to a safe area. Further, all non-oak species were worked around cautiously with virtually no casualties. There was no soil disturbance or ruts left behind, thus preserving the ground level flora. We are most grateful for these experts and their demonstration of their arboricultural skill and respect for the natural site. Both Jim and I commented, it looked like they weren't even there when they were done. It was just so impressive. They took out 67 trees, so it was something. And then we had to switch to a different trenching at the cemetery because of those wonderful graves. So we hired someone that had a vibratory plow, and this is what we used to trench at the cemetery. and it was in the middle of December. And then this is a photo of the infected tree at the cemetery, and then as it was left a couple days ago. So it doesn't even look like it's the same area. It's wonderful. And I put this in just for Sue. Trench lines are the probably treatment for containing oak wilt at the snow cemetery site. The line has been combined with tree removals and herbicide to fresh cut stumps as further containment efforts. Based on this RIO's plan and superb execution, we have a high level that no further oak wilt will result from this pocket at all, which is just great news.
Well done.
We're still working on our goal to have articles in both e-news and the newsletter every month on park stewardships or natural resources. So that's still happening. Do I have another slide? I'm just gonna throw this out here as an idea. Some of us in the West Michigan Conservation Network teamed with Central Woodlands 5-6 teachers, students, and parents. And we had a community invasive work day. And a resident challenged me last week that I really needed to get doing something about the autumn olive at Peace Park. So I'd love to think that maybe we could all come together, maybe some staff could come, building and ground, board, we could have a little work day at Peace Park and get after that pesky autumn olive, rent a chipper and put it all through. So just something to think about, maybe late summer. Okay, I think.
Excuse me, Jenny, when did you say the best time is for that late summer?
It's I would say like early August. I think the berries, it'd be great to do it before the berries get on,
Okay, yep.
which I think is like the beginning of September, but I would have to double check that. But it was amazing what we did at the 5-6 school and how it all just disappeared, and it was gorgeous. And the environment has really responded. So I've just been yakking. What questions can I answer? I put you all to sleep.
No, we're just trying not to look.
We're just very
Behind
thankful
compared
and
to you.
impressed, right?
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
seriously.
You have really done a wonderful job, and the Parks Committee has worked really
Someone
hard.
said to me the other day, which really kind of took me back. He's like, I remember when we met quarterly as a Parks Committee. How did we ever get anything done? I'm kind of like, I don't really know the answer to that because that all happened before I got there.
Oh, it
So-
sure shows. Thank you. And thanks for
Thank you.
coming to update the board.
You're welcome. And I'll stick around in case you've got questions. Can I give the jump drive and then I won't forget? 'Cause I'm old.
No, you're maturing.
I'm sure.
Next, we have Article 6, approval of the consent agenda. Is there discussion or a motion?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by treasurer Pierce to approve tonight's consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, financial actions. We have none this evening. Article 8, unfinished business. We also have none. Which brings us to Article 9, new business. First, item 005, 2023, creation of a Parks and Recreation Director position. The Parks Committee, after considering public feedback and after extensive deliberation, has recommended the creation of a Parks and Recreation Director. As noted during our fiscal year 2023 budget process, we have existing dollars available for this position. The job description that's enclosed in tonight's meeting packet was drafted by a Parks Committee subcommittee. It was then approved by the entire Parks Committee, reviewed by our HR director and also by Manager Swayze. Manager Swayze, do you have any comments before we begin board discussion?
No, I think you covered it. So we are working with our PR team to put together a final advertisement brochure, something that's a little bit more flashy and sells us a little bit better than just a plain job description. So we're hoping that'll be done by the end of this week or beginning of next week. And if it's approved by the board, we will get it advertised in short order.
Discussion? Trustee Shipley?
some of our neighboring townships put in a Parks and Recreation Director position quite some time ago. And when they did that, it just blossomed. I mean, the programs that came out of their townships drew the public in, drew the youth in, and it blossomed. And I think that this is long overdue.
Agreed.
I make a move to approve the creation of the Parks and Recreation Director position.
Shipley supports.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley, to approve the creation of a Parks and Recreation Director position. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 006, 2023, invasive species treatment agreement with the Kent Conservation District. Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so as in previous years, we are looking to partner with the Kent Conservation District to provide our invasive plant management program in various parks and public spaces throughout the township. You guys heard from our Parks Committee Chair tonight, so I'm not going to go back over how important this is. Obviously, we've seen how important that it is. So the 2023 proposal calls for a cost of about $22,000. Those include parks, public spaces, public buildings, and they're budgeted appropriately in the budget as well. We've touted the Kent Conservation District in the past and that partnership. On top of the invasive species management that they do, they also run several instructional courses in Cascade Township for residents that are hosted in our public spaces and helps our residents to control invasive species on their private property as well. So again, $22,000 budgeted in various places from the project. Besides the cost, last year we approved $20,000. So besides the cost, the contract is the exact same that was approved by the board last year.
Discussion, a motion?
It's a no-brainer. It should be interesting to note that decades ago, Ginny, this was before we started maturing and getting gray up here. Decades ago, the conservation districts, along with the Department of Natural Resources, gave away autumn olive for plantings for the native critters that like autumn olive. And here we are today, pulling it out by the roots. That's all I have to say.
Is that a motion that you made?
Yeah, it's a motion to go ahead and make the agreement.
And I'll support it.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald, to approve the invasive species agreement with the Kent County Conservation District. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 007, 2023. Purchase of columbarium units for the 30th Street Cemetery. And I know Clerk Slater and Deputy Clerk Chrissy Broad have put a lot of hard work into this. I believe that Manager Swayze and Deputy Clerk Broad are prepared to give the board an overview.
Yeah, definitely. So I can start and then Chrissy or Sue, you can add in anything that you want, but we all know that we own and operate our 3 cemeteries. At 30th Street Cemetery, we offer traditional burial and cremains burials, as well as the columbarium for placing of cremains. So the columbarium units each have 32 niches, and they continue to be a popular burial alternative. We initially began with 1 unit, and then we placed 2 additional units in 2016. When the 30th Street Cemetery expansion project was completed in 2020, we put in several more pedestals for future units. Due to the increasing popularity, the township budgeted for 3 additional columbariums for 2023 in order to continue to offer this option to our residents. Unlike the burial plots, there is a cost associated with the columbarium. The niches are sold for $600 a piece and $400 for the bottom row. And then the residents are also responsible to purchase the plaque that adorns the front of the niche. We also charge $100 for opening and closing of the niche, or $300 if it's after hours. So there's 2 costs associated with the purchase of the columbarium units. The first is the purchase of the units themselves, and then the second is the placement of the unit. We had Cold Spring, who sold us our current 3 units, give us a quote for the additional 3 units. We want to make sure that they match. So that's why we're just got the 1 quote. The quote for the 3 units delivered to the site is $51,282. We expect the placement of the units to cost approximately $2,000. So I included the proposal in your packet. So the columbarium is essentially a break-even scenario for us. The total estimated cost is around $53,000. And if we continue to sell the niches at $600 and $400 for the discounted bottom row, we generate about $55,000 in revenue. Because of the growing popularity, we think the columbarium will continue to be a viable alternative for our residents. And we expect to see increased use of the option. Should be noted, it's in the proposal that the lead time for the units is currently 44 to 46 weeks. If the timeline holds true, we should be able to get them delivered in place in 2023. But if there's any unforeseen circumstances, it may push the delivery and placement until 2024. Did budget $60,000 for this project this year. And I will turn it over to Chrissy and Sue if they have anything to add.
Question, Sue, and we kind of touched on this before the meeting. Are we getting enough columbariums to hold us for a while? Or do you have forecasted time that we may be filling these up and looking at more?
Oh, me?
You may speak to that.
I think we're going at, I think if we had only added one columbarium, I think we would be in that trouble. That's why we're doing 3. So I think 3 will hold us.
Till you're
Hmm,
swag it.
maybe about, I mean, when you say about,
How
A
long have we
decade?
had the others?
So the
decade or
first one
so?
took us a while. The first one took us almost 10 years to fill up.
right,
The next 2, again, the bottom isn't filled up, which is why we discounted that row. But the next 2 filled up essentially in 5 or 6 years.
So you're looking at maybe 10 years use.
that's what I was thinking from that. And in competition with, if we decide to open up that other space, if it's ready, I think it'll all kind of even itself out. don't
Well,
you, Sue?
I like, most importantly, the factor that Ben brought up is that Cold Spring is doing it and
Mhm.
it's all going to be matching. So we
Yes.
don't have mixed match of columbariums up there.
Yes.
nice.
Cool.
What do we see, is cremations versus the columbariums versus the traditional grave sites? Do you see?
So what I'm seeing is that people who want a plan to be laid out will purchase a columbarium niche. People who, I mean, we are each resident here, like husband and wife, get 1, 2 graves at time of need. So you can't plan for it. So that's what it's why it's a good option, is because first of all, it's a beautiful space. And it's a great place to honor your deceased loved ones. Secondly, it allows for someone to say, this is where I want to be. I know this is going to happen. And so I think that's why residents choose it. For me, I think a lot of people do choose grave sites more, but that is changing. And that's why our little group with Jim, Sue and Ben and Jim and I talk a lot every month about what's new. Trustee Nordhook brought up green burials and we are still researching that. We have 2 new leads on folks to talk to. So we're always talking about this. And I think that's why the columbariums are such a popular.
One other question, because I'm not familiar with the columbarium, but like when my dad was buried at 30th Street, we saved a place for my mom right next to him.
Yes.
Columbariums, if he were in a columbarium, is it an option to reserve the spot next to him for my mom?
So if you were in a columbarium, you can fit 2 urns in 1 niche,
Very cool.
but
So
you could also buy 2.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna not
if 2
sell you
urns fit
one.
in 1 niche, that's fine. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But I have sold, I explained this to a resident. I said 2 can fit in 1. She said, nah, I want my own.
Yep.
So she bought 2.
Is there a limit? And are those only available to residents? for
Those are
purchase?
only available to residents. Just the same rules.
Also, I think if once we get those other 3 situated, if it's approved, if more are needed decades down the road, you'd almost have to redesign another space for it, because that kind of fills up that whole area that we just re-landscaped. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but is there any room for any more if we need them?
Is Jim still here? Are there more pedestals besides the 3 that we're using? After we use these 3, there'll be 4 more left? Oh, there'll be 1 left. Yep.
Oh, okay. So. That'll last a while. Thank you, Chrissy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion to go ahead with purchase as recommended.
Support.
Second,
It's a motion to approve the proposed purchase of the columbarium units by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 008-2023. The Kent County Road Commission's work order for the pathway on Cascade Road between Ken Rob and 36th Street. This was reviewed and approved by the Pathways Committee. Manager Swayze.
Yep, so the road commission, we know scheduled what was originally a 2022 project. It got pushed to 2023 to add a 3rd/middle lane to Cascade Road between 36th Street and Whitneyville. So during the Kent County Road Commission public hearing for this project, several residents on Ken Rob expressed concern regarding their ability to safely cross Cascade Road to get to the pathway on the opposite side of the road. In response to the concern, Kent County Road Commission offered to partner with the township on a pathway project. You'll recall originally we talked about a mid-block crossing, however, eventually landed on a full pathway project that would extend from Ken Rob north to 36th Street interchange, where there's a protected signalized crossing for pedestrians. They anticipate the pathway will be 10 feet and will be able to maintain the 10-foot distance from the road, though it may need to narrow slightly in some areas. So the board did approve this project in concept back in April 2022. However, as I mentioned, the project that was originally scheduled for summer 2022 was delayed till spring 2023. So the project has been now bid and awarded, and it's scheduled to commence at the beginning of April. So the partnership would involve the road commission managing the project, including the engineering, bidding, and project management. We'd be responsible for the cost of the new pathway and a small portion of the inspection cost. So the road commission's prepared a project cost estimate based on their bids received. The project itself, $121,527, and then $6,000 in inspection costs. So in your packet, I included the work order for the Cascade Road Trail Extension, the draft schematic of what the pathway would look like, and then the project notice that's been sent to residents in the project area already. So yeah, the initial estimate from the road commission, $125,000. So the project is really within that original estimate, and our fiscal year 2023 budget was prepared with this project. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead.
As we discussed last year, this did away with a lot of problems. The Kent County Road Commission didn't want the crossway right there. It was a bit dangerous. This makes it much safer. It's cleaner. It doesn't really disrupt anything. It's just an overall a really good solution and extends the pathway with safety. So.
Good point, Tom. I just got a quick question. First of all, as a precursor to my question, Kent County Road Commission is one of the best road commissions in this state, if not nationwide. I've been blessed with a lot of travels, and I find no road system better kept than ours. Ben, if there's a problem later with the pathway, say it starts to crumble or something, does the road commission go back to the contractor and say, you got to fix this patch? Or do we have to find somebody to do that?
Yeah, so if it's within the warranty period, the road commission would handle all of that.
Okay.
But after it gets out of the warranty period, it becomes part of our pathway system, and we'll eventually be responsible for preventative maintenance and
Sure.
resurfacing maintenance 10, 15 years.
Well, that's logical.
what is the warranty period?
I think for state bid contracts or county bid contracts, it's 1 year. But I'd have to ask Wayne for the actual time.
And if we execute this work order, this gets us, this gets the project set for the 2023 construction season?
Yes, so the project will start in April. I believe it will be done before the 4th of July.
I make a motion to go ahead with the proposal and agree with Kent County Road Commission with their proposal.
Support.
Motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to approve the Kent County Road Commission's work order for the section of pathway between Ken Rob and 36th Street on Cascade Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 009-2023. Kent County Road Commission work order for pedestrian improvements on the Cascade Road Bridge. This is the section of Cascade Road over the Thornapple River on the sides for bikers and pedestrians. This proposal will address the imminent public safety issue associated with crossing the bridge if you're on a bike or on foot. The board previously discussed this issue, and it's been reviewed by the Pathway Committee extensively. We've also received a lot of inquiries from residents on the status of this project. It appears we have several options. Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so yep, you covered it. So I would add that the Pathway Committee specifically recommended the improvement on the northeast side of the bridge. The DDA is interested in possibly funding the southwest side of the bridge. So the way the work order is designed is that the road commission will come back with basically two design alternatives, one side versus two sides. We'll bring those to the DDA and the board to review in late March or early April. And then with another work order, if the DDA and the township board want to move forward to actually do the project. Indications are that this can still be a 2023 construction project. It isn't particularly invasive. Wayne thought that once the crew is on site, the whole thing would take less than 2 weeks to complete. So even keeping, they would keep traffic open. And they would like to do this project after the widening project is done, so they're not in conflict with each other. So it puts us in pace probably for the second half of the construction season this year.
Comments, discussion?
Ben, are they planning on trying to do the modeling concept that they talked about where they put up the straw bales and?
We've had that conversation
Yeah.
About that. So once that design is back, we can take a look at that.
But that's not part of the road commission.
That's not part of what the road commission is just doing the preliminary engineering to tell us what it'll look like and how much it'll cost.
That's what I thought.
Us as the township could then potentially, we would still partner with the road commission because it's their bridge,
That's right.
but we could potentially do some of that modeling.
Trustee Shipley?
I've got to wholeheartedly agree with the Pathway Committee that the north side of the bridge takes priority. I mean, it's only logical. That's where the pathway is. And if the DDA wants to completely fund the south side of the bridge, since there's no existing pathway there now, then so be it. If they want to take money out of their coffers, let them. But as far as us funding the south side of the bridge in any manner, including one red penny of a taxpayer dollar, I would be opposed to that.
But this work order, Ben, just to be clear, is just to get the scope of the project, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to make a motion to approve this work. I just want to first give my compliments to the supervisor because she's been a real advocate of this for a long time and really helped drive it. So with that, I'd like to approve the work order for the Cascade Road Bridge pedestrian improvements from the Kent County Road Commission.
And I support that motion.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the Kent County Road Commission work order for the pedestrian crossing across the Thornapple River. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 010-2023. Contract with Native Edge for possible outdoor space project here at the library. I noticed we have our new branch manager, Lulu Brown. We also have the designer from Native Edge here to answer any questions. No question is stupid. And we've also got Manager Swayze. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, so just to provide a bit of background, because we did already approve the use of the site. Last year, the library staff came and presented the conceptual design and the budget for the outdoor gardens and activity space. as well as the public feedback they received, and the board at that time approved the use of the space for the project. So recently, township staff and officials, namely myself and Supervisor Lesperance, and then the library staff and members of the Cascade Friends of the Library group met to review the project process. And while the township board was originally only asked to allow for the use of the property for the project, really the recommendation from that meeting is that as the property owner, we should be the one kind of holding and executing the contracts as well. But the project management team will still consist of both KDL staff and township staff. So an agreement for landscape construction documentation and construction administration for phase one of the project's been secured from Native Edge Landscaping. That's the company that also developed the initial design and budgetary estimates for the Friends of the Library. So the cost of the proposal is $16,250, covers construction documentation and specifications, and bidding, coordination, and construction oversight. So it'll be a requirement that the township board approve the final design before bidding occurs. So you guys will have an opportunity to see the updated drawings. And then the board will be the entity responsible for approving the bids. The Friends of the Library will be required to forward the required project funds to the township before any agreement is executed. So we'll collect the funds from the Friends of the Library and then execute the documents. So the proposal from Native Edge is in your packet, as well as the project narrative and conceptual design and budget that you guys have seen multiple times. And again, we talked about the support from the public and possible, DDA contribution to phase two, the last meeting as well. And then as Supervisor Lesperance mentioned, the library director, Lulu Brown, and the Native Edge landscape architect are here to answer any questions you may have as well.
Just for public who may not have read all the packets over the last year, can you briefly go over how, like, the origin of it and where the money came from? Just.
That might be Lulu. Do you want to talk to that?
I just think
it's a
residents would like to
library
hear it.
passion
It's kind of a
project.
nice.
Yeah, so it's all going to be right when you pull into the library, that space. What we're starting to experience in the library is that people are really starting to use this as a third place. So they're not just coming in here for books, they're coming in here for the programs, they're coming in here for a cup of coffee, they're coming for tech support, ways to interact with their grandkids that might be in another state. And our library staff are able to provide that, but what we're missing is an interactive outdoor space. When we bring in reindeer, like we did on December 5th, we had 1,100 people show up to feed reindeer, to sit on the firefighter's lap who were dressed as Santa Claus, to buy things from teens who are making crafts. We're really becoming a community hub. And we just know that that would be the icing on the cake. So my predecessor, Vanessa, who was here before me, she had this beautiful idea of creating this space. We were able to reach out to Native Edge as well, who has done some amazing designs that really utilize native plants and really understood that vision of how do we incorporate programming with an outdoor space. Wes, would you like to share anything about how you created your design?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me again. And it's exciting that I'm here talking to you about this project. So basically, like Lulu said, is just making the grounds an extension of the library and inviting people to go outdoors and still feel like they're in the library space and with that same mission of education and learning. And now, our specialty is incorporating really vibrant natural spaces into the landscape, and that's what people want. So they want to connect with nature. And so creating spaces in the outdoor areas surrounding the grounds where you can have groups of different sizes gathering, interacting with the landscape in different ways, also increasing the safety out there so there's not conflicts between the use areas and the vehicular traffic and things of that nature. So just trying to make it an engaging space, accessible for all of the residents here in the township, and just create some really vibrant places. And we're ready to take the next step with the design. So
I really appreciate how your design really works with native plants and also serves all different ages. It's not like one use for a certain area. It's really just kind of an extension of what people are doing inside. It's really well thought out.
excited
Great.
about it. We also have the Friends of the Library group. You asked a little bit about the funding for
Yep.
it. They invest more than 7,000 hours a year in fundraising for the library. And they have a nice account. They really want to make sure that they're able to leave their legacy for the residents of Cascade. So they were willing to commit all of the funds for the initial phase, which is more than $200,000 to make sure that we're able to execute phase one. From the library perspective, we know that this maybe wasn't a part of the township's initial plan, so we're committed to making sure that we exhaust all of our resources to try to also make sure we find the rest of the funding.
Thank you. Where does the Friends of the Library, where do they raise their funds?
So we have a couple of different ways. They get book donations, and that could be from a variety of methods. The large donations come from people who may be moving into like a senior home, and they want to get rid of their collection. It can also just be people that are leaving memorial gifts. They also have ongoing book sales that they do in the library with items that may not be in perfect condition. Maybe a couple of the pages are torn, and they're able to sell those at a discount, including the book sales that they do for events like the 4th of July. So we're lucky that they supply a lot of funding for our programs, and I'm very lucky that they spend so much time fundraising for us and that they have the funds to contribute to phase one of this project.
Go ahead, Sue.
I just have a question about the area. New retention area, meadow planting 13, that large area that right now is grass.
Yes.
Is that gonna remain like that?
So I do think, I'm glad you asked that question because right now we have a master plan. And so it's very flexible in nature. Basically what the funding and approval of this contract is going to allow us to do is to take the next step in detail. So we're going to bring a lot more partners into the fold. Everybody who uses the space is going to have a voice in the design. So I know that that area is used for a lot of programming, and that's some of the feedback that we got during the initial kind of concept discussions. And so it doesn't have to be that way. I think what we're looking at is a lot more of those prairie plantings, doing the same things in terms of creating buffer between the busier road, a main road, and the use space that we'll have. So I think more of that lawn will remain so that the programming and the 4th of July activities and other sorts of large events can still take place. So those are the types of things that don't look at anything in the plan and think it's set in stone just yet. Those are things that we're going to be looking at and adjusting and making sure it's the right fit for all the different things that go on here on the grounds.
Thank you.
Got a couple of questions. First of all, I like the title up here, opinion of probable cost.
Yeah.
It leaves a lot of open ends. You said that the Friends of the Library are going to completely fund the first phase,
Yes.
over $201,000.
Yes.
And of course, there's some contingency fees, so there could be some money left over. I applaud the Friends of the Library for doing that. My concern going down the road, as I mature in this township and I'm still paying property taxes, has anybody figured what the annual maintenance cost is going to be on this, lack of a better term, grandioso plan?
Do you want to speak to I think you gave us like a 3 to 5 year original estimate.
Sure. Let's see here. The estimate, the budget estimate you can see in the original opinion of probable cost. I guess I can say in terms of, to speak to that kind of flexible nature of that initial estimate, because it was pretty high level, those ongoing annual maintenance commitments are going to be something that's spelled out clearly when we put together these next budget numbers. So when we go into developing this plan, it will say right in that plan what the expected maintenance costs will be. And I know that connecting with other community partners, such as groups like the Friends of the Parks and Parks and Rec Committee, part of our goal here too is to create an engagement space where people can learn about how to care for these gardens. Not saying that, we're going to rely on a lot of communities to do that, but there are a lot of people that do like to be in these spaces and take care of them. It's becoming a lot more popular. So we want to make those things accessible to community members as well.
Okay, and I appreciate that. But we also fund the Buildings and Grounds Department. So if we're looking at down the road needing to add to their resources, i.e. manpower or equipment, we need to know that up front.
Yeah.
Not after, oh, here, by the way, here's an additional bill for you. And let me just remind people that maybe weren't here at the table, is that when we bought Burton Park, we were supposed to have a master gardener up there to help all the residents. Never happened. If that fails, you guys ought to be heading out of the township. Brenda?
Yeah.
And
And everything is one step at a time. So tonight, if we say okey dokey with phase one and things don't work out well, you can scratch phase two, phase three, and everything thereafter.
And they did select Native Edge or the library proposal because it was lowest maintenance, appeared to be lowest maintenance of all the different architects, right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah, that it's not no maintenance. No, that's one thing you got to be careful of in these types of situations. A lot of people like to say native landscapes and it's no maintenance. You just set it and forget it. Well, that's not the thing. But when it's tended to properly, it is lower maintenance. And so that's going to be a part of this whole package as well, is we're not going to have to say, okay, if master gardener, it's your job. Oh, if that person disappears, well, we're in trouble. There's going to be a whole maintenance guide that instructs how to do this so that it'll be a resource into the future, in addition to well spelled out expected maintenance costs.
So we're not gonna be another California where we expect everything to just fall naturally, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and also, I'm from Missouri, so show me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Trustee McDonald.
I believe this is going to be a very exciting project and a tremendous asset for Cascade in the long run. I like what you call Lulu, the community hub. Because in the surveys over the last 10 years, especially even recently, the residents have said they'd like to have a community spot. And obviously, if 1,100 people went in December, I mean, that's the heart. The library being the heart of the community is really good. But getting back to what we have to vote on tonight, the deliverable that we're going to get out of this is the detailed construction documents. That's all we're getting, the construction documents for phase one. And I look at the plan, exactly what constitutes phase one. If I look at the master plan.
Yeah, so phase one is it's basically the area just adjacent to the northwest side of the library. So as you exit the library doors from within the library and to where the wooded area is kind of on top of the hill a little bit.
Yeah.
Basically that area and between the library. So
This is kind of the stage before the pavilion. The pavilion would probably be
Yes.
2 or 3.
yes,
Stage 2 or 3.
that's phase two.
Phase 2, that's right.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I just want to make sure that I knew the parameters of what we were approving tonight for the
Yes.
construction design.
Yes, and part of that is because phase one, it's going to look like a complete project. So it's not going to appear as if it's half done. We're going to set it up so that it can seamlessly transition into phases 2, 3, and 4. But yeah, phase one is the area immediately outside the library, because that was really what we were kind of charged with when we first started thinking about ideas for the space. And we couldn't help ourselves and said, well, we could do some other things here that were pretty neat as well. But yeah, phase one is the wooded area to the library and that immediate area as you exit. So it's got the most connection right to the.
So then, in the event that, the economy across the world collapsed completely and we decided we want to stop after phase one, we could, and it's going to look complete.
Yes.
But if we want to then go on and do phase 2 or 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time,
Yes.
that's up to us depending on what we decide at that time.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. That's
Yep.
very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
No, that I move to approve that we move forward with the proposal for the landscape construction documentation and construction for phase 1 with Native Edge.
Shipley supports.
That's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the contract with Native Edge for the outdoor library space. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Great.
Don't
Thank
let
you.
us down, Mr. Green
Oh,
Jeans.
not at all. Thank you very much.
This might be a good project for our new parks director,
But he will be involved, he or she.
just like our new engineer in-house kind of solved our pathway conundrum in a month. 0/11/2023. scheduling the public hearing regarding updates to the township's floodplain ordinance. Manager Swayze.
So the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, has completed the new flood insurance rate maps for Kent County, and they're scheduled to go into effect February 23rd, 2023. So the maps are set to go in effect after the required statutory 90-day appeal period that was initiated by FEMA and noticed in our local newspaper. FEMA did not receive any appeals of the proposed flood hazard determination or submittals regarding the preliminary flood insurance study during the appeal period. So we currently participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. As a member, the township must now adopt a new floodplain ordinance prior to the effective firm date of February 23rd. By participating in the National Flood Insurance Program, our residents that live in designated floodplain areas are eligible for flood insurance. If the township does not participate in the program, FEMA flood insurance policies would no longer be available to anyone in the township. So those homes and business owners that have mortgages in the mapped floodplain would get their mortgages called due when their policy expires, or they'd be forced to obtain private flood insurance through Lloyd's of London at a typically substantially higher rate. And then if a federal disaster was declared, while a community is not participating, the federal disaster assistance would not be available to the township or the residents in the floodplain. So the first step in the process is to set the public hearing for the ordinance adoption, which we're recommending be set for Wednesday, February 8th at the regular township board meeting. And then once the public hearing is held, the board will be able to adopt the ordinance at a meeting or any future meeting of the board. So in your packet, I include a couple items, which includes the draft floodplain management ordinance, communication from FEMA, including a summary of map actions. And then I included the website where if you want to take a look at the maps, you can go ahead and do that. We also have them at our planning department counter at Township Hall. So again, if we want to move forward with the ordinance adoption, we got to set the public hearing. The proposed ordinance been reviewed by and approved by both Eagle and the FEMA offices. We'll note that the floodplain ordinance is the exact same ordinance that we have in place now, with the exception that it references the new set of maps, and it won't change anything that we do. The building officials still, all the FEMA regulations are in the state building code, which we have adopted, and the building official and the building department's responsible for managing the codes.
What's the time frame that are we looking at for when it needs to be done?
So it needs to be done by February 23rd.
So we're fine time wise with public
Yep.
hearing and then.
Yeah, so technically, we've already, because Eagle and FEMA have already approved administratively, we've kind of met their internal deadlines, but we'll still have approved ordinance before the 23rd as well.
So Ben, to really net this out, to us, it's almost no cost other than administrative costs. And the real crux of the matter is that if we don't approve it, then residents who live in the floodplain can't get insurance through FEMA. But if we do approve it, then if need be, they can get insurance. That's the real, okay.
And only other question, Ben, are we required to send a postcard or anything out to the folks?
We don't have to send a postcard out, but we advertise the public hearing in the newspaper.
Okay. Standard procedure.
Should we also put it on our website? I realize most people.
Yeah, we have a section on our website for public notices, and then we put it on the front door at the township hall as well.
I make a move that we set the public hearing for consideration of the Cascade Township floodplain management ordinance for Wednesday, February 8th, here at the Wisner Center at 7 p.m.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley, to schedule the public hearing regarding updating the township's floodplain ordinance for Wednesday, February 8th, the regularly scheduled board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That brings us to Article 10, the discussion. And we have one item tonight, and that would be specialized transportation services, Hope Network. So we kind of covered it, but
Yeah. So to continue that conversation and a little bit about what we talked about. So Hope Network did notify all of their specialized service customers and all of Kent County in December that their funding had run out and that they weren't able to provide rides going forward. We did not get notice, so we've kind of been scrambling to figure out what's going on. And again, I've been talking to Jason down at Hope Network. I've been talking to Chad at CDBG at the county, and also talking to some of the other local communities that are going through the same thing right now. So I did reach out to a couple other entities to see if there was alternative programs out there, and I haven't been able to identify anyone yet that would be able to provide the same service that the Hope Network does at this short notice. So, you know, we might be able to design something for the future, but nobody that can pick up the slack. I will note that up until 2018, the township did put significant costs into this program. So the way CDBG was designed at that point, it was allocated to individual communities rather than to the county as a whole. So for some of you that were on the board then, you may remember that every year we approved our CDBG allocation. It was like $7,900. And then after that ran out, we did pay for the rides for the rest of the year. When the CDBG program reorganized in 2019, basically they just had a pool of money then. Anybody at the county was eligible to tap into it. So the township has not put a significant amount of money into this program over the past couple of years, but we have continued to put money in our budget, recognizing that there might be a time when CDBG funding runs out. We thought we'd get a little bit of
We didn't think
head
it'd be so.
start on it, notification, but we do have that money in our budget. The other issue is that the per ride cost has gone up dramatically. So the last time that the township funded rides, they were funded at essentially the township's portion was $17.15 a ride. Right now, the Hope Network is quoting a ride cost of $32.71 a ride. And currently $4 of that comes from the rider. Currently, the township does contribute $1 per ride, with the remaining of that is what was coming out of the CDBG program, and now we need to find the funding source for that, for the rides to continue. So I know there are conversations. There's supposed to be a meeting next week. Disability Advocates of Kent County has kind of stepped in to be an intermediary between the CDBG program and Hope Network to figure out what the short-term funding solution is. And talking to Chad, it sounds like they have some COVID funds that could potentially be tapped into to provide service through the rest of the year. But in order to do that, the Hope Network needs to tie their funding deficiency to COVID. So they're working together to talk about that. In talking to the township manager in Ada, the action that they took on Monday, and something that I think that we could consider as well, as the Ada has agreed to fund rides through the end of February, just to give CDBG and Hope Network time to kind of figure out that short-term funding solution.
Specifically with Hope Network.
Specifically with Hope Network, yeah. So the same service, just instead of the cost coming from CDBG, the cost will come from Ada Township at least during February. I agree, you know, what we don't want to do is say, hey, yep, we're the funding solution for the next 6 months. You know, by doing this, it would allow our residents to continue to have their rides in February, give CDBG and Hope Network time to work that out. We're kind of butting our way into the conversation as well again, we have to figure out a long-term solution. But what I can do then is come back at the second meeting in February, provide an update to the board as to where we are and if we need to take further action. We have the money in the budget for it. You know, the calculation that Jason from Hope Network gave me based on the ride. So they did narrow down the eligibility the last couple months. So you used to be able to essentially just take a ride as long as you qualified. You could take a ride whenever you needed, wherever you needed to go. They whittled it down to going to work and medical appointments. So the amount of rides that we have for Cascade riders has whittled down since October.
What about like educational programs? Would that fall under work?
So I think, yeah, if they're going to school, I think they're giving rides for that as well. But even to fund it through July, the quote that Jason gave me based on the average rides in December was still short of $30,000. So we do have the money in the budget to tap into it. And
How did Ada word it if they, as far as funding through February, did they set a dollar amount based on their number of riders or, how did they word it?
they just agreed to fund the service through February based on the restrictions that are currently in place.
So for qualified residents and proper purposes?
Yeah.
They didn't set a dollar amount?
I don't think they said a dollar amount, no. They have less riders than we do too, so.
And is 8 the right number for what we're aware of right now in Cascade?
So we have, we've had anywhere between 5 and 12 riders a month. So December was the first month with the full restrictions in, and we had 5 riders in December. In October was when they started whittling them down. We had 8 riders in October. Back in the early summer, we had some months with 11, some months with 12. But some of those was one person taking one ride, so.
And Ada agreed to fund through the end of February. And we're already almost at the end of January. Technically, we follow Robert's rules, but in the discussion, we could, if the board is comfortable and manager space, if you're comfortable, I would, because that's another 2 weeks before we meet again, and February is coming up quickly, I would make a motion. Oh, yeah, we could do it through March. To a motion to take the same action tonight. If that would get riders 2 weeks, so they're not sitting around. Unless there's something we're not thinking about, but I think the sooner the better, if that's all right with you.
Might I make a recommendation that instead of considering it to the end of February, we consider it to the end of March?
Are we enabling other agencies who may? We're not enabling, are we? The other agencies that need to step it up or?
So I don't think we're enabling them. I would come back with a report to the board, the second meeting in February anyways. We'll have some idea if there is a solution on the horizon. We might be able to say at that point that, yep, the township funding is no longer needed, or it may be a combination, right? So, if they find COVID funding, but they think it may not last, and we may say, okay, the township's going to contribute $10 a ride and the rest of it's going to come from COVID or something like that.
One other thing too, if we're saying, yeah, we're gonna fund it for February and March. Do we have the opportunity to open it up to more than those limited rides, for instance, to work or to a doctor's appointment? Can we also open it up and say, hey, Hope Network, we're gonna take care of our residents, and if they need to go to Myers, we'll pay for them to go to Myers?
I'd have to talk to Jason about that because it is a countywide program now. I
But
don't
it's
know.
our money.
But I don't know if administratively they're set up to have different requirements for different communities. It's certainly something I could ask him about.
I'd be in favor of that because it's, as you may recall, you guys have been around here for a while. I'm a big proponent of Hope Network. We get a lot more bang for our buck out of that than we do that ghost bus. And whatever we need to do to take care of our residents properly, so they have a quality of life, then we need to do it.
Ben, would you put together, or would you make a recommendation for how to word a proper motion or how, or you want me to, do you want us to take a,
I'd make a motion, we put it in Ben's hands and let him do the dirty work.
but he needs board approval
We need a
to,
motion, Formal motion.
and also can it be effective immediately? Okay. And even though Hope Network is expensive compared to possible, we could maybe do better. It's just, they're already set up and
They're
they're
already here.
So I would think it simply, I make a motion that we approve funding ridership for Cascade residents via Hope Network right at this point through March, unless we hear otherwise from the CDBG and Hope Network that they've resolved the funding issue. At which time then they'll take over the funding issue March 1.
the township will assume responsibility for funding Hope Network services so that they can continue under the same scope previously, right? With the same restrictions and purposes, ridership requirements?
Yep, so I mean, I can, if we want to do it that way, and then I can ask if there is an opportunity to up, or if we just want to keep the restrictions, we can do it either way.
If it needs board approval to add on for certain residents, yeah, for additional ridership, but can it be effective immediately if we approve tonight?
So it can be effective immediately. I don't know how fast Hope Network will be able to start back up. Jason does know that we're having this conversation. Julius informed him Tuesday morning of what Ada did, so hopefully the wheels are already turning. But I don't know if somebody called tomorrow morning for a ride, I don't know if they'd be able to service them yet.
But you could keep calling and just,
So you're saying with the same restrictions that are currently in place,
same terms.
Yeah.
that-
start
that
with-
qualification.
See if there's an option, and I can provide, I don't have to wait till the second meeting in February. I can provide an update to the board at the February 8th meeting as well.
Cool.
So this would maintain the same level of service that they were getting before the abrupt cancellation? And how long has they been without, like, when did it end? We learned about it from a resident, right?
So I
December.
understand that rides stopped at the end of the year.
Okay,
Chad from CDBG told me that Hope Network informed them that they were stopping service on January 13th. So I'm not sure exactly when the last rides were done, but sometime end of 2022, beginning of 2023.
I'll second.
do you need the motion restated?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can simplify it this way. I make a motion that we approve Hope Network ridership for Cascade residents, like what they had in December. And fund that through March if necessary. But we can fund it only through February if Hope Network and CDBG come together with alternative financing in between.
That work?
No.
Through the end of March and just.
Okay, through the end of
Through
March.
the end of March.
That the township will pick up the ball. What's that saying?
The township will pay the fees through March as needed.
There you
Okay.
go.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So that's a motion as stated by trustee McDonald, supported by clerk Slater. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Ben, thank you. You were working hard on that one, and that's a,
We will continue to work hard on it to make sure that it's, again, we need to make sure long-term it's resolved as well.
here's another brick in your backpack.
and thank you for coming tonight. It's easy to just think about it far, it's a distant thing, but it's really appreciated that you guys took the time to come to the meeting. Public comments. Positive or negative, on the agenda or not? Okay,
I apologize in advance or for not having the sound properly on at the beginning of the meeting. And so those who are online may not have heard that if you need to make a comment during public comments, please write it in the chat and I will read it after the in-person.
Commissioner Bujak, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Walter Bujak. I live at 6639 Thornapple River Drive, Alto, Michigan, actually Alaska, Michigan. And I'm from Caledonia Township. I'd like to begin by thanking all of you for serving on the Cascade Board of Trustees, positions of responsibility that you're willing to do representing the good citizens of Cascade Township. Thank you very much. On Tuesday, January 3rd, I was sworn in by the Kent County Board of Commissioners, and I am officially your Kent County
I'm sorry.
Commissioner for District 21, representing Caledonia Township, Bound Township, and one half of Cascade Township, everybody west of the Thornapple River, approximately 31,000 people. It's my hope as your county commissioner to partner with you as Cascade trustees and bring to you regular legislative updates as deemed, appropriate and necessary. On January 3rd, our agenda, we had two items on the agenda. The first one was selection of the board chair, vice chair, and vice chair for the Kent County Board of Commissioners. We elected Stan Steck, the commissioner, Emily Breve, the vice chair, and Stefan Wooden as the minority vice chair. And item 2 on that agenda, we also appointed commissioners to the various committees. I was appointed to 3 committees. I was appointed to the Legislative and Human Resource Committee. I was appointed to the Kent County Fire Commission, and I was also appointed to the Grand Valley Metro Council, and that would be one of most interest to all of you as trustees, as Cascade Township is a member of the Grand Valley Metro Council with your supervisor Grace as the representative from Cascade Township. I'm looking forward to working with Grace on the Grand Valley Metro Council. We will be working on reviewing the airport plan for future expansion. There's currently a study being done right now by the Grand Valley Metro Council. I believe you're going to be having an open house right here next month.
We're not, but we are allowing it to happen.
Okay, so you're allowing a open house to happen for the Grand Valley Metro Council. Right now, I urge you to take the airport access phase 3 survey, which you can do at gvmc.org, and the same thing with the citizens. And I'll repeat that. It's the airport survey phase 3 airport access survey at gvmc.org. Also, after the primary, I immediately got involved with the Cascade PFAS committee, recognizing the PFAS problem in your precinct 8. I immediately, representing the citizens there, came to the Cascade supervisor and said, I want to be on this committee, and I've been attending the meetings, and I'm committed to staying on that committee through the remediation process. The county has awarded $3 million of ARPA funds to Cascade Township. Unfortunately, it came with stipulations. And I understand Ben is working with the county to try to negotiate away some of those stipulations so that you can actually get that money and use it. I hope that happens. I've also been involved with attending meetings at the Forest Hills School Board meetings, very interesting. And Ginny, I think you'd be glad to hear this. I am also a Thornapple River advocate. I live on the Thornapple River. I've been a member of the Thornapple River Watershed Council for 21 years. And right now we are in the process of selecting a new chairman. And I've been approached for that role. So Jenny, you may be contacting me. And also Jenny, you might be interested to know that I've been involved with the GE Volunteers, and we come to Cascade to help you with your volunteer projects. I've been involved with the other Jenny from Kent County Parks and working on pulling out of olive and garlic mustard out of many, many parks. So very actively involved as a citizen volunteer myself in those activities. And finally, I would like to echo John's comment and praise about the Kent County Road Commission. We absolutely do have the best county road commission in the state of Michigan. So we're blessed with that. And count on them to clear the roads when it's snowing out there. And again, my goal here is to partner with you and come and give you periodic updates. You might see me sitting here in the audience, and I promise you I won't come up here and take up too much of your time. This is my night to introduce myself, and I wanted to come before you and let you know that I am here to partner with you and looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whoa,
We're looking forward to partnering with you. I think we already are.
Pardon me?
We're looking forward to partnering with you.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Trustee Shipley wants to fire a couple.
hey.
Uh-oh.
Don't sit down.
I won't be able to answer any questions, but go ahead.
We welcome you to this board meeting.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to know that you have our interest in art. You do not have nearly as much interest in our residents as what we do. We will let you know if you're stepping over bounds,
Mhm.
and we'll let you know what our residents need and what our residents want for a good lifestyle. And by the way, your little burg down there used to be called North Caledonia before it changed to Alaska.
Thank you.
You're dismissed.
Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you. You are a supporter of the Thornapple River and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If trustee Shipley hasn't scared everybody away yet tonight.
And his bark's worse than his bite. Brian Holcomb, 3415 Glenstone Court. Now he's going to give it to me. Go ahead. Nope, I just came up here to get an update from Ben. He was probably going to bring it up in Township Manager's minutes, but I thought I'd come up and ask.
Yep, so we've had two calls about Egypt Creek this week, both with them doing moving earth within the floodplain, which we still think is a Eagle violation. So Mr. Holcomb was fortunate or generous enough to allow us to use his property to take video and pictures. Medicine has submitted both those days' activities to Eagle as part of their review. And then, as I mentioned last week, they have directed us to their FOIA portal to get ongoing updates. So we did submit our first FOIA request, essentially for everything in their case file. And we're waiting for a reply on that.
Does the moving or removal of that brush in the floodplain violate any township ordinance?
Does not.
But
We are.
he asked for an
prepared.
extension. And that was, he had to submit what he was going to do or what his plans were. And this is in violation of that because he asked for an extension. So he's doing something, trying to cover something up before he submits whatever he was supposed to submit
To Eagle.
to Eagle that he asked for an extension on. Because it says he's not supposed to do anything until he submits that report. So I would have to think that if he's violating Eagle laws or statute, that's also violating Cascade Township. Now, whether or not we want to bootleg onto it or go along with it, but yeah, he's, that the thing that Eagle sent out basically was cease and desist what you're doing to the land. Didn't say cease and desist your business. You can still be in business and do your snow plowing and whatever, because landscaping is not this time of the year, but him moving stuff around. And on the 16th, when Brian Hillebrands came out and took a picture, he had moved a bunch. He had a pile, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 feet. He's got pictures of it. So do we. But he just took a bunch of stuff and just piled it all up. And that was all shrub, grass, dirt. I don't know if he's trying to uncover the west side of on the north side it's Turtle Creek. And I don't know if on the west side it's called Turtle Creek, but it did come into Turtle Creek. And according to Kramer, who lives on that side, Bob Kramer, he had almost covered it all in. And it looks to me like he's trying to uncover what he had filled in. So hopefully that's what Eagle will pay attention to also.
And has all the pictures, whatever evidence we had, been already shared with?
It has, yep. So we have it in our file and then we shared everything with Eagle as well. Probably more than they needed.
So
It's okay.
it looks as though, in your estimation, he's trying to undo some of the wrong that he's done. In your opinion,
Yeah,
gotcha.
because he's not supposed to be doing anything.
Yeah.
And even though he can do something with his stuff, a lot of this stuff, I believe, came from outside.
Yeah.
Which we've already caught them and turned them over to the sheriff. So that's, he's not supposed to be doing.
So we do appreciate you notifying us when it was going on and gave us a great opportunity to get out there and
But you haven't heard yet from Eagle in regards to the FOIA.
have not.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, good evening. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yep.
First of all, now that you've decided to hire a Parks and Recreation Director, I might recommend Ron Swanson. And if he's not available, Leslie Notes. No one gets this?
No.
Parks and
Oh,
Recreation?
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, there we go. I've got two questions, and one is, and this is to Manager Swayze, is what's the status of the deer survey, particularly, and just where are we otherwise in connection with managing the deer.
Yep, so we did, I reached out to Dr. Keys a couple of weeks ago. They had taken the cameras down in Burton Park. When I talked to him, the students weren't back in session yet. They certainly are now. He indicated that the first project they were working on was the analysis. So he said he thought you would have initial data for us to at least take a look at end of January, beginning of February. And then a more robust presentation to the board will be coming sometime in the first quarter.
Do you expect that ultimately to be a report, and how do you intend on sharing it?
What's that?
Do you expect that ultimately to be some type of a written report, and how do you intend to share that with the public?
Yep, I intend it will be a written report. So it'll initially be presented at a meeting, and then at Supervisor Lesperance's direction, we're actually working on a page on our website right now, kind of a running story of the whole project. So anything that we get will be put on that webpage and shared out with the
Good,
community.
thank you. And I asked this already of Supervisor Lesperance, but it was a while ago. I would like to ask a favor.
Timing?
Timing, please. And I am going to be in New Zealand for the last couple of weeks of February, going into March, visiting my new granddaughter and taking a side trip, since I'm in the hemisphere, to Australia. I would like, if at all possible, for that meeting to be scheduled either before that or after that, given the amount of time I've invested in this. But if it can't be, then so be it. But I would appreciate that courtesy if you could.
Thank you. Do we get any ballpark from Dr. Keys about when it may be ready? We don't, do we?
He just told me he would have the initial data for me end of January, beginning of February.
Okay,
And it's the end of January now, so.
okay.
But even so, that initial data will just be for us to look at. We can certainly schedule the presentation around whenever we want to have it.
Or not, because we can't make this a slippery slope with residents, but we did hear your request.
Okay, thank you.
And if possible.
Yeah, again, if possible, I
we'll
understand.
Absolutely try
I
to
understand.
accommodate
You
people.
have to accommodate the public and not just me, but I would appreciate it if you could at least think about it.
We will definitely at least think about it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments or written comments online? Manager comments.
Yeah, so I think you guys heard enough from me tonight, but just one other item that Commissioner Bujak mentioned is that we are set for the Grand Valley Metro Council open house. It'll be in this room on February 16th from 4 o'clock until 6 o'clock. Thank you to Hunter. He spent a lot of time last week getting the postcard up and around, and thank you to Supervisor for helping us out with that. So it's at the printer right now, and it should be in mailboxes in the community that first week in February. So I'll give everybody plenty of time. And then we've put together kind of a schedule of how we're going to promote it as well out on Facebook and make sure that everybody is pressured to come in and give their opinion. So.
I would second Ben's recommendation that residents pay attention and do the survey. And if you're able to attend on February 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. here, it's appreciated, because the proposals as part of an overall transportation study that the township has nothing to do with. There's an airport accessibility part to it, and that would directly impact residents in Cascade. The airport's in Cascade, and what they're looking into, 4 proposed new locations for on-off ramps, 96 and M6. That would, and that would go along with the desire for industrial land use. So when 72% of our tax base comes from residential properties, people like to live here and maintain our property value, that would have a dramatic increase. I sound like a grumpy, broken record, but it's very important because sunlight is the best disinfectant. Not our survey, but if you don't want an expressway in your backyard, I encourage you to fill it out. Or an Amazon warehouse. On that negative note, does anyone else have any board comments?
Sure. As you regular attendees know, I always stand up and thank you for being here tonight. It was great seeing how many faces, new faces, old faces. But do come back again. Make sure you take that survey online, as the boss already alluded to. It's extremely important. If you plan on living here for more than the next 5 years, you need to voice your opinions.
One of the proposals, and it's changed, but one of the location sites, Thornapple River Drive, right by the rec park. So if we don't like certain landscaping companies moving stuff around, imagine what it's like with a new on-off ramp. 48th Street, where it dead ends into the airport, into the, I mean, that's our buffer area. The river's right there. So if we're not proactive, Amazon, FedEx, storage warehouses, right in your backyards. I'm not supposed to
Comment
talk, I'm
on
supposed
the
to leave.
airport exit, because I took the survey and I looked at all their options and, okay, they've got the options. I'll leave it at that. The one that they didn't have that I think we should think about, because the airport owns a lot of property. But if they were to do something off of M6,
Yep.
right onto 48th Street, right into the airport around FedEx, that's something that wasn't even on there. So if you think about that, take a look at that. And if we can get a lot of people to submit that, then that might be an option. All the other options were Patterson, 60th, 44, 36. It's going through town. This way, it's right from M6 right to the airport. So they own a lot of property. I don't know if they own FedEx and they're just leasing it to them, but they've got a lot of property. They work where they could put a couple lanes and go around FedEx, and then it's all on their property, not in Cascade Township.
And if you look at that survey, that M6 area on the southeast.
They're not even really
portion-
looking at M6. They're wanting to do everything off of all the other places.
Mhm.
So
If
that's my 2 cents.
They wanted M6. They wanted an exit off M6. It
And
was
when you look-
$160 million exit.
You mean that didn't happen, but that was previously desired?
Yeah, that was in there.
When?
We
Way
saw
back.
we saw it on a map.
it made Metropolitan Detroit Airport look like a rural town.
I took our kids, the boys get their haircut at the local Cascade Barber Shop, Andy Biermacher. And I was asking him because he grew up here. He actually, his house was very near where the library sits today. And he said, there's a little cemetery. What is it, Sue? St. Mary's?
Parish.
St. Mary's Parish. So if you're on the southwest border of the airport, you're driving over there and there's all these, easy to build, quick, cheap warehouses, all this stuff. And then there's this tiny, beautiful old cemetery. And Andy said that it was all beautiful back there. It was like a natural beauty road. And then there was a waste management company that was going to come in, but they were going to contain their business. And it was, it wasn't going to affect the neighboring properties. It would all be, contained and not spread. And if you drive there now, I feel sorry for anyone who's buried in St. Mary's because it's this beautiful little cemetery surrounded by just cheap warehouse squalor. On that note,
I make a motion for adjournment based upon the premise that all business has been concluded at this township board meeting.
nothing left to say.
Second.
The motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater to adjourn. All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thanks for all coming tonight.
Let the people's will be heard.
What?